Talking all things Lexington Super Regional. The Kentucky Wildcats host Oregon State this weekend with a ticket to Omaha, Nebraska, and the College World Series on the line. To help us break it all down, our good friend Adam Luckett, Kentucky Sports Radio. He takes the time to join the show. Adam, what's going on, man? Appreciate you taking the time as always.
Hey, man, happy postseason baseball. It's not boring, for sure. I mean, you never really know what you're going to get, and the double elimination format always is a nice little twist compared to some other sports we see, especially in the college athletic space. And so you get some twists and turns, and we even got some upsets this weekend, specifically over there in East Carolina. So it was a fun first weekend, but this is actually my favorite part of the tournament coming up. The Super Regional, I kind of compare it to like playing an Elite Eight game in the basketball tournament, because just making the World Series is a big deal. Like you see it on the parks there on the outfield wall. They got College World Series appearances at almost all of these parks, so it's a big deal. And so this is a big moment, I think, for a lot of programs. And for Kentucky, they've never gotten past this round, so they're trying to get that monkey off their back. So really excited weekend. You get the best of three series here, and I'm really excited to check it all out this weekend.
As you mentioned, Adam, it was an electric opening weekend with the regionals. I think you could argue, and maybe it's recency bias, but one of the best regional rounds we've ever seen, with the upsets, the walk-offs, like you mentioned. Not a lot of drama in Lexington, though. Kentucky took care of their business, obviously had Indiana State, Illinois, and Western Michigan in the regional. Adam, I want to wear this L right now with you on air. I took Indiana State like a fool. Kentucky proved me wrong yet again. I don't know why I did it, just going with my upset brain, and that just is what happened. So I apologize here on air with you. But anyways, Kentucky takes down Indiana State in that regional championship game again. I don't want to say coasted through the weekend, but took care of their business. What were your thoughts on the weekend that was for Kentucky and how they went about it?
Yeah, my kind of big takeaway was entering the postseason, the big question mark was Kentucky's pitching. But I also think like getting out of SEC play probably helped that pitching staff the most. Just like, okay, we can breathe a little bit here. And I think you kind of saw that play out. On the first game was actually the toughest game against Western Michigan to kind of open that. There's some jitters there. Kentucky gets a big lead. They probably, I think, let off the gas pedal a little bit. But they pitched their third number 3 pitcher, Dominic Neiman, who gave them about 4 or 5 innings, and then the bullpen got a little shaky in the bullpen, but they get out of there. And then I think Trey Poozer and Mason Moore, who kind of headlined their staff, just hummed against Illinois and Indiana State. Poozer gave them 7 innings, a 1-run ball, over 100 pitches, and Mason Moore 6 hits, 0 runs, or 6 innings, 0 runs, 4 hits, over 100 pitches. So they got some innings ate up, and that's really what you want in some of these regionals, especially first round, any tournament, really, when you start getting postseason baseball. So to me, that was kind of the story. Kentucky scored like I thought they would. Their offense really did get humming, and you saw the balance, I think, in the offense. They can play long ball, something they really haven't done, I would say, super well in the Mingione era. They can do that some, but they can also do the station-to-station type stuff, and getting runners in motion that can give some teams fits too. And so I think you saw that all play out, their offense play out, but really the story to me was just the pitching staff, mainly the starting pitching, and that they didn't really have to go deep in the bullpen. Like, I don't think Mingione had to throw an arm out there this weekend that he didn't really want to throw. I think it all worked out, and they got the players I think they wanted to get work, ended up getting work. So I think if you're going to draw it out on paper, I think that regional went about as well as it could have gone if you're Kentucky.
So, Adam, as we look ahead to this upcoming weekend, the Lexington Super Regional, like I mentioned, Oregon State, the Beavers, the number 15 overall national seed, come to town. It's a Saturday, Sunday, Monday Super Regional, and Kentucky, Adam, got the primetime slots, 6 p.m. Eastern on Saturday night, 9 p.m. Eastern on Sunday night. So, I mean, we could see Kentucky punching their ticket to Omaha when the clock strikes midnight there in Lexington.
Yeah.
But, your initial reactions, initial thoughts when you saw it was going to be Oregon State. Obviously, us here in SEC country, we probably don't watch a ton of West Coast baseball, but Oregon State's a brand and a program you're very familiar with when it comes to the College World Series and being in this position.
Yeah, the first thought was like, well, they're going to see one of the best hitters in the country again. They've gone through this gauntlet in the SEC. Why not do one more in the Super Regional with Travis Bassana hitting .415, OPS over 1,500. Just an absolute stud. I believe Chris Burke or someone was calling him the Rory McIlroy of baseball. Just not a small package, but he hits the ball a long way. And so that is going to be he's going to be kind of I think the headliner when you're kind of digging into this Oregon State team. But you start looking a little more like it's a balanced club. Like they've got good starting pitching, they've got a good balanced lineup, and they've got star power there too. So it's a tough team. 3 national championships, like you mentioned, the brand. So, right, you don't know much about Oregon State, but in college baseball, you know that is a real deal program out there in Corvallis. So I think it's going to be a challenge for Kentucky. And when I look at the matchup, to me, it really all that comes down to if you have to go to game 3, if you're Nick Mingione, like who do you throw and what's the pitching strategy there? I would be a little worried if it got to game 3 if I was Kentucky. I think they would like to get this wrapped up in 2 when they got their 2 top dogs on the mound in Mason Moore and Trey Poozer. If they can wrap it up in 2, I think that's what I think is going to happen. Either Kentucky's going to win it in 2, or I would say Oregon State probably wins it in 3. I'd be shocked if Oregon State swept this. But that's kind of how I'm looking at that here. Kentucky's big weakness is pitching. They kind of avoided that in the first weekend, but I think Oregon State's got a little bit more juice in their lineup than the teams they saw last weekend in Lexington. And so that is the real, I think, challenge. But Kentucky's used to this because they played lineups like Oregon State all year in conference play. And so you have to hope that kind of that wear and tear of going through the rigors of a Southeastern Conference regular season will help them here when matching up with Oregon State. Because, again, the power that Oregon State has is not something that Kentucky's going to be shocked by. They see that almost week in and week out in the league.
Adam, it does feel like you mentioned 3 national championships for Oregon State and all the history and the tradition and the banners and all that. It feels like I could argue this weekend kind of plays into Kentucky's hands from the standpoint of, you know, even though Kentucky is the much higher seed, you could argue they had the much better year. I mean, Oregon State was still very, very good. Don't get me wrong. Like, everybody's going to be picking Oregon State. Everybody's going to look at this matchup and see the brands and, oh, I mean, Oregon State's supposed to win. It kind of feels like this plays into Kentucky's favor where all year they've been doubted, the chip on the shoulder, nobody believes in us. Nobody takes Kentucky seriously as a baseball school or a baseball program. It kind of feels like this plays well. Not that I guess it would matter, but it's an interesting dynamic, Adam. I feel like that it's another weekend for Kentucky to go out there and take it upon themselves to take it personally to prove the world wrong yet again.
Yeah, I think you look at it as Kentucky has it kind of teed up here. With how the season has gone, they've never made a World Series. They've never hosted a Super Regional. They finally get to host a Super Regional. A team from the West Coast is coming all the way to the Eastern Standard Time. And now the times didn't really work out. I think Kentucky were at the planet. The 9 p.m. game 2 on the East Coast on a Sunday night when people have to go to work the next day. That's kind of the biggest storyline here. It's like, what the heck? Why are we starting this game this late? But all other aspects, it really, I think, sets up well for Kentucky, especially with how I think the postseason has worked out. They didn't make the deep run in the SEC tournament, but they got 3 games in. They got their work in. They handle their business in the regional, and now they've got this opportunity here to get to Omaha, something this program has never done before. So it's a big, big opportunity, and the moment is set. Now they just got to go capitalize, and we'll see if they can do it. And to me, again, I think it really all comes down to pitching. If they get good starting pitching, I think they're going to win this thing. If they don't, they're probably going to be going home.
So, Adam, you may have just answered my question, but the biggest X factor for you for Kentucky, when you look at Oregon State, like you mentioned, very well-balanced club. They can swing it. They can pitch it. They're in the tops in the country in both those categories. But the X factor for you that, like, Kentucky, the thing they need to do, and maybe there's a key player for you that you think needs to emerge this weekend for Kentucky to punch that ticket to Omaha.
Yeah, I always look at these matchups, lineup balance, like where can the unexpected maybe offense come from? And I think one of the best things about Kentucky's club is just their balance offensively. We've seen Grant Smith, who hits in the 9-hole, may have big hits in his career. We've seen Nolan McCarthy have some big moments hitting down there towards the bottom of the lineup. Ryan Nicholson has 20 home runs and he's hitting in the 6-hole. So we've seen the bottom of the lineup really kind of deliver for Kentucky, and they kind of have an unorthodox lineup because they have Devin Burke sitting in the 3 spot. And he's not your ordinary number 3 hitter, I would say. So they have a kind of an unorthodox lineup, but they have balance, and so I could see one of those guys. I could see like a Grant Smith who made a hell of a play in the clinching game against Indiana State to save a run on a leaping catch in left field from a shortstop position. I could see him maybe coming up with a big hit. That's something I would look for. Does the maybe overall balance of Kentucky's offensive lineup, does that give them a spark in one of these games and end up being the difference in this series?
Adam, I think Kentucky this season has earned the respect of their peers and many baseball fans. But can you quantify, can you just put into words what it would mean for Kentucky baseball to finally break through and punch their ticket to Omaha? Like what that would mean for the Kentucky program as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, every year when they throw up the graphic, long after see that at this time, right? Like, oh, Kentucky's one of the only SEC schools to never have made it to Omaha. You just don't have to see that anymore, and it's just a big kind of like almost like a stain on your program. You just get it out of the way, and like I think people start looking at the Kentucky baseball program through a different prism once you do that, because once you make it to Omaha, then if you're a program that can do that, then you can win the whole thing. Mm-hmm. Like if you can get there, you can win it. And so I think that's a big step. I think with Nick Mingione, it's the next step. Like they've proven twice, really 3 times now, they've proven that they can get to this stage. They can get to this point. It's just, but they haven't won a game here yet. They got swept by Louisville 2017. They got swept by LSU last year. Now they have to break through. Now they need to win a Super Regional game. Now they need to go win a Super Regional. They finally get one in Lexington. And so I think really just getting a monkey off the program's back and proving that they are a legitimate SEC baseball program, that to me is what is at stake this weekend.
Adam, on that note, I heard a stat that I almost couldn't believe over the weekend, that not only is this the first time that Kentucky has been to Super Regionals in back-to-back years, this was the first time they had made the postseason 2 years in a row. Did I hear that correctly? That to me is insane. And it just, I think it speaks to what Nick Mingione has done. I had a hard time believing that when I heard that, admittedly.
Yeah, I think you really kind of, I mean, what he has done since the 2020 season got canceled. The 2020 team Kentucky had was going to be really bad that year. Season gets canceled, and then the portal kind of age comes in, and I think he's totally evolved as a head coach. Like he's really kind of flipped this thing, and now they've turned into a consistent program that can make tournaments a couple years in a row. We'll see if they can keep doing it after this year. I mean, Kentucky's a hard job in this league. It's hard to win in this conference. Like you got to win so many games to even get to the postseason, and you got to go through the SEC grind to get there. But I think he's proven it to me. Like it's not necessarily making the 2; it's having a really good season last year. You know, a good solid season, middle of the pack in the SEC. You win your regional, you go to Supers. What's taking them, I think, to the next gear was being a team that, they won. They won the share of the SEC, proving that you can actually compete and win this league when you've got it right. And, like, that is what's set, because when you're doing that, then you can be national championship good when you got it right. And, like, I think if they can handle business this weekend, they're going to go to Omaha thinking that they can win the whole thing. And that's a total change for Kentucky. I don't think they've ever really had a team where they thought, yeah, we can win the whole thing with this team. I think they have that with this team. And that's credit to Nick Mingione. He's totally flipped this program here in the last 5 years. And now it's kind of at a crescendo right now. Now they just got to go take advantage when they play Oregon State this weekend.
The Kentucky Wildcats with an opportunity to punch their ticket to Omaha for the very first time when they take on Oregon State this weekend at Kentucky Proud Park. Adam Luckett, Kentucky Sports Radio, does a fantastic job, one of the best in the business. Adam, we appreciate you taking the time, man. Let's definitely do it again soon.
Anytime.